Call to order. We'll have a roll call if staff would take a roll call for us.
Member Wheeler.
Here.
Member Jacobson is here.
Here.
Member Miles is absent. Member Sparlingwood absent. Member Rockwell.
Here.
Member Davis absent. Member Crow.
Here.
Member Fultz.
Here.
And Chair Porter.
I'm here too.
All right.
Okay, we have a agenda here. Do I hear any motions on that?
I move we adopt the agenda.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion, any public comment on the agenda tonight?
I don't see any.
Nope. Okay. Any discussion? There's just one item on the agenda. Hearing no discussion, we'll do a roll call on the vote.
Okay. Member Wheeler.
Aye.
Member Jacobson.
Aye.
Member Miles is absent. Member Rockwell.
Aye.
Member Crow.
Aye.
Member Fultz.
Aye.
And Chair Porter.
Aye.
Okay, that motion passes.
Okay, the item on the workshop tonight is our energy policy. We finally got, in the beginning of October, comments back from the city, general government, and the city, and GRU, and all those. Excuse me. Sorry about coughing in Al's ear, at least not in your face. Ugh. Anyway, I usually try to be a neutral party in all these things, and I'll do the same tonight, but I would like to start the ball rolling with a little bit of an intro from my point of view. And that is that one of the hardest things that we had to learn, and I think the two departing members were pretty good at guiding us through that. That was Chair Alford and Chair Sylvester, on policy versus tactics versus getting there. And so with that in mind, we set a bunch of policies in place to talk about the general direction we thought we should go in. Many of the comments, it's editorial on my part, and this will start the discussion, I'm sure, in a rather lively sense, but many of the comments that we got back from the, excuse me, I gotta close the door, from the city government and GRU were based on what I would call tactics. And didn't, again, those are the things we have to deal with, argue, sweat back and forth, and swear at, and vote on, and work on throughout the next 20 some odd years. So I felt that a lot of the comments were tactic oriented rather than actually commenting on the policies. And the easiest way to figure that out is take the policy and word it in a negative sense. And say, well, we don't want a sustainable community. We don't want an energy efficient community. And of course, that's not what GRU or the UAB or anybody associated with this is saying. So again, sometimes I felt that that's, you know, how it could be taken looking that way. So with that in mind, many of the comments that we got would fall, in my mind, under the heading of informational. The problems we're going to have getting there. I went back and followed Robin's advice saying go back to the original recording in October and go to the 1 minute or 1 hour and 42 minute mark and listen to the charging instructions from Mayor Poe. And that's exactly his point. Is don't get, it's policy, not tactics, not things that you do to get there. So with that in mind, hopefully that sets the stage a little bit for what we do the rest of the evening, but the floor is open for comments. Yeah, go ahead, Fletcher.
I wasn't here in 2019. I'm a newbie, you know. So I wasn't involved with those earlier discussions. Could you or somebody just take a minute and tell me about the very background to this thing? Where did it come from, and why are we doing this? And what's the purpose of it?
I'll take a stab at that. Wes, I know at least you and a couple others have worded this before, but chime in. But, you know, the UAB is a kind of an in-between the utility and the city commission. And it was felt by the early chairs of this group that there should be some guiding document that says, where do we think the community should go with this utility, and what do you think we should do? And everything that comes up shouldn't be a surprise. We should have somewhere to go that says, boy, did somebody think about this? Or what is the agreed upon thought when we get to this kind of decision? Where did we want to go? And so that makes a good reason for coming up with a general policy on energy issues for the city of Gainesville. And that's kind of how it came about. Again, any of the rest of you want to chime in and add your better words to that?
I don't know that I have any better words. I think you summarized it very nicely. We were seeking a comprehensive framework for policy. My 2 cents all along has been that the city commission makes decisions. They're the political body. The staff, the executive director and staff manage. They do the day-to-day stuff. And in between, we're the policy setters. We're the ones who say, given the city's city commissioners' policy decisions, their executive political decisions, how do we go about implementing those? How do we go about giving guidance to staff to implement those? And that's where the idea for this policy plan came up. While I'm speaking, I'll just say that I have to echo Chair Porter's words about staff's analysis. I didn't find it particularly useful. I found it more of a naysaying. And I know that this is nothing new, that the general manager and I have had numerous discussions about these policies. I saw that staff's analysis was mostly why our policies wouldn't work because of certain strategies, So that's just my 2 cents. I think we should go forward with this. And as I've noted in my comments, I'd like to have my schedule put back in, but that's just a minor point. That's up to the city council to decide. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think somebody else had comments too. Yeah, Barry, go ahead. Unmute there.
Yeah. And Wendell, I agree with kind of where you started. I think that's a really good way to look at it, is to divide policy from implementation and to see, have they given us anything to work with? No, I mean, I have to say I have some empathy for where they're coming from.
Yeah.
I know Ed loses hairs and they turn gray every time he reads another section and says, well, it's easy for you to say that's a policy. How are we going to implement that? And so I think that's where they're coming from. But
Yeah.
I think we have to, I think we have to really stay in our lane right now, which is, what is the policy? One thing I did want to bring up that struck me, they talk about natural gas, and maybe this crosses out of policy into implementation, but to be saying, oh, look, we're doing good things, we're promoting natural gas, which goes exactly opposite of the policy.
Yeah.
Which I still find painful. But again, I understand from GRU's point, it's so hard to say, do all these things, but they're going to be pressured to lower rates and do, everything else is working. We're making their job harder. And I do recognize that, and don't do it uncaringly.
Yeah, and not any utility in the land's got an easy job either. So it's like misery loves company. So, yeah. Any other comments on that general thing? I had a couple other specific ones too. Robin, go ahead.
Yeah, if I could I thought this would be a good time. I had told Member Wheeler that I would investigate and try to see if I could figure out how it came that schedule was left out. I did find out, I think that I emailed you all and told you that the version that I was given by the Chair Sylvester at the time when you all were ready to meet with the commission, the version that he gave me to post that for that meeting did not have the schedule in it. I went back today and listened to some portions of the workshop that you all had, and also the joint meeting with the commission. And it appears that Chair Sylvester indicated that there was some dissension or disagreement among you all, as some people thought that you should have an exact schedule and some thought you should not, and that because of that, left it out of that particular draft. And then I am not sure that after that you all ever really went back and worked on it again. At that point, it then went to staff. So it just didn't make its way back in after that commission meeting.
Nice summary, Robin. That's now that you've jogged my memory, that's exactly how I remember it also. There was dissension in the ranks on putting a time frame in there. The dissension was basically around the question I brought up right at the beginning, policy versus tactics. Again, I think I side with Wes on that, but again, at the time being with the current membership there, that's how they felt it, and that's the way it went forward. So that's where we are with that.
Okay, that was all I had. Thank you.
Thanks, Robin. The other thing that Mayor Poe in his recommendations for how to go forward on this was, again, back to the, was Barry's words, I believe, staying in our lane. There's a couple areas it was felt by the mayor and the city commission that we strayed out of our lane, most notably in the transportation area. You know, I can play devil's advocate on both sides of that, but again, if the feeling was that we should rewrite some of those and actually just have a policy statement from an energy point of view, one way to find new customers would be to electrify transportation and support that at the utility level. That would kind of cover all of it, but again, it wouldn't have the detail that we put in it. If the city is feeling very strenuous that we should pile out of that because there's other organizations doing transportation, then we should have a discussion on how we want to rewrite that, but still carry the same emphasis. Just, I don't know, it's open for thought.
Chair, this is Jason Foltz. I had a quick question as well, clarification if I could.
Yeah, go ahead.
So like Fletcher, I'm completely new to this process as well, and trying to kind of digest and understand where all this is headed. And I just want to make sure I'm clear. My understanding from reading the going forward section is that from this policy will flow GRU's strategic plan and, quote, clear measurable goals. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so this is kind of the foundation from which those things will flow.
Yeah, it's basically, to put it in hard, fast concrete, it's like, you know, the city said 2045, we're going to be 100% renewable. How the heck are we going to get there? So the policy is saying, here's the areas where we think we're going to weigh in on. And then once we say go, then you have to start putting tactics in place that will get us there in an intact city government and intact utility. Yeah. Fletcher, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to follow up with what he just said. Is there any set date for when this plan is supposed to be developed? Or any?
Yeah, I will speak for Carla. Yesterday.
Well, we got two different documents here. We got the one that we're working on now, which is this policy thing. But Jason just talked about sort of an implementation plan.
Oh, yeah.
So is there a date set for that?
No, an implementation plan is basically, from my point of view, what we do for every minute from here on out until these goals are met. So, no.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead, Wes. Member Wheeler, sorry.
That's quite all right. Going to give Ed some more gray hair. And I'm going to follow up on Fletcher's comments about implementation, et cetera, et cetera. The timing was fortuitous, I guess, in a way. We received a copy of the GRU strategic plan this last week. First I'd heard of it. I thought we were a policy board. That would be a good idea for us to be involved with that. And a number of the staff's comments kept referring back to the IRP, the resource plan. And I've heard from other folks in the industry that our IRP doesn't necessarily support renewable to the degree that the city might want to. I'd like to see the UAB involved with that more as well. But for now, directly to Fletcher's point, I think we need to move forward with this draft energy policy and then follow up with requests to staff and to the city commission that we, the UAB, get involved in the strategic planning process, the strategic plan, and the IRP.
Yes. Comments? Barry, go ahead.
So, well, I guess kind of related to a number of things being said. So my understanding was once we get through the policy, then we'll hit strategic planning as next.
Yeah.
Is that your understanding? Just to make sure we're all on the same page.
That's my understanding. Well, you got to get the horse before the cart. Right. Sorry. Yeah. General Manager Bilarski.
Yeah, I put my, I raised my hand, but yeah, I wanted to address what Wes had said there. And that is the strategic plan was done back, I think it was in 2019, updated it. I think it was before the beginning of the fiscal year 20. So it was our 5-year strategic plan. And we actually did take that before the UAB. And we took it before the city commission as well. So, you know, we don't update the strategic plan every year.
No.
You have a strategic plan over the next 5 years. And that's what you saw there. And then in addition to that, what we attempted to do was just to show the city commission how that strategic plan merged with their strategic plan. So, I mean, I don't remember if you were made party to the city commission's meeting to go through their strategic planning session with an outside party, but the charters were, and so but nobody outside of myself and the other charters were invited to that strategic planning session with the city commission. So, you know, this kind of gets to be like the House bill and the Senate bill. You know, GRU was the House bill, and then the Senate bill was over in general government or at the city government. And what we attempted to do by sending that out to everybody was reconcile what GRU's strategic plan is to the then developed plan for the city, to show that, you know, those elements of our strategic plan do indeed match with some of the objectives within the city's strategic plan. So we weren't trying to exclude anybody there, but quite frankly, the city commission excluded you folks.
Yeah. All righty. So as far as this document is concerned, Wes, did you have another comment?
No, I don't.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, your little border turned yellow there, you know, sort of. But as far as the rest of this document is concerned, what is the consensus or thought process among the attendees here today about the issue of the transportation things and the mayor's discussion about that being outside of our lane? Do we want to leave that as it is, or do we want to acknowledge that and rewrite our comments on that? Or again, with an eye towards dealing with Member Miles and her obvious desire to get this out among the public and get talking about it, I would hate to say that there would be anything that I want to delay tonight on. But what are your thoughts about that transportation issue?
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead, Wes.
We spent a lot of time, a lot of deliberation, and a lot of work in proposing. I wouldn't want to go back and revisit that. If the city commission wants to remove it as they see fit, they certainly should do whatever they see is appropriate. But I don't think it's our place now to be making changes at this point.
Gotcha. Heard and understood. Thank you, Member Wheeler. Absolutely. Member Rockwell, I believe.
I would just echo that sentiment. When I got the invite for this workshop, you know, I had to go back and look at the document. I came into the process kind of late.
Yeah.
Literally a year since we had that last joint meeting. So I tried to get up to speed, and I at first I was kind of nervous, and I was like, wow, I don't know if we can turn this around in a week and present this to the city commission again. But then the more I looked at it, and the more we're talking now, I mean, the UAB didn't really find a whole lot wrong with it back then, and nothing's really changed. So there's not really a whole lot wrong with it now, I think.
Gotcha.
And I think especially talking about electric vehicles and charging stations, that definitely goes with GRU. So I'm kind of I'm kind of ready to move forward with this.
Gotcha. Yeah. Thank you, Member Rockwell. Member Crow.
Yeah, I was going to say this exactly the same thing. When we talk quote unquote transportation, most of the document, as he said, deals with charging stations and such things, which I think are very relevant to what we're about here. And the UAB, since the time I've been on, has addressed that question, and I think appropriately so. But the part that really stuck in my craw in that lane business was building codes. It's my understanding that GRU really doesn't get involved with building codes or the building inspection process. And the draft document seems to assume the GRU has a real major role in all that. And that's just contrary to my understanding, unless maybe I'm wrong, but I saw that as really outside of our lane.
Well, Member Alford has a vast level of experience in dividing that lane up, and I believe reading carefully in there, in some places we do reference the codes officials, which is another body of the city and doesn't relate to GRU, but as the end users or supporters of the production of electricity, anything that changes the code and changes that arc, they need to be aware of and be a part of. But yeah, some other bodies might be doing the verification, evaluation, things of that nature. General Manager Bilarski.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I don't want to interfere in your discussion here, but I did just some relevant facts. The electric charging stations are in the Department of Mobility within general government and have been. Fred Murray, the Assistant General City Manager over there, has been addressing that whole Volkswagen settlement and working with, the powers that be in terms of getting money for those charging stations. They have they maintain the fleet of vehicles for the city. The fleet of vehicles isn't maintained by GRU. So as much as it would appear that GRU would be involved in that because it's the selling of electricity, it's more a matter of the fleet and those vehicles in which we both can benefit from that. So that's the way it's been handled.
Yeah,
so
but from our cheap seats in the UAB, our intention is to grab a different market, so that we don't always come down on you and say we're going to be more energy efficient, we're going to reduce sales, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. This is one nice way to increase sales and do something good at the same time. So we want to be on the side of that very clearly and very directly.
Well, if you want to get rid of the gas division, you have to come up with about $11 or $12 million right away. So,
Mr. Chair, if I may.
You got 2045 coming on, so we got planning to do and got work to do. Go ahead, Member Wheeler.
Thank you. You stole some of my thunder there, but we can sit here all day and say we can't do that. We can't do this. It's too expensive. Can't do that. Can't do this. It's too much. I understand. The general manager's in a difficult place, but we do have 2045 coming on in a real big soon. This is an aspirational plan. This is a goal. This is a place we want to get to. It's not something that we have to do tomorrow, but it is something that we need to start working on now. And I guess that circles back around to my comments at the beginning of this meeting. I thought a lot of staff's analysis were why this plan wouldn't work. Well, let's not focus so much on why it won't work and try to find ways to make it so that it will work. Thank you.
Yeah, so now I'll put a different spin on that. I share Member Wheeler's eagerness to get on with solving the problem. Let's just say that the staff comments were good signposts and markers on what we have to overcome to make our things work. So it's a good marker forwards on what we have to deal with. So
Well
that's
said.
going to keep us all busy and all our talented minds at work for the next 25 years. Although some part of my brain says I'm not sure how much more of that. But anyway, we won't get there now. All right. So I pretty much heard the story and a couple of almost amens and huzzahs on leaving the transportation alone, and we'll let the city act accordingly if they want to pull that out and put it under a different part of general government. But we'll leave as is because of the nature of, as far as I said it, selling more electricity. All right, comments, queries. Member Crow.
Yeah, to follow up with what he just said, if you look at all the wording of the staff comments, you get the feeling written between the lines that they wish we would just dry up and go away. It's like a big nuisance, like a big joke.
Well, I can't go that far. It's their obligation and their fiduciary responsibility to keep us informed of the problems that we're going to entail in trying to get there. And that's why I made my comment about misery loves company. Every single utility in the country, whether they know it at this time or not, is faced with the same transition. Many have already started down that road. Many are farther along. But again, we're all stuck with it. And so having them point out the problems is part of their business. Yeah. Ed.
Yeah, I have to say, the staff does not think of the UAB as a big joke and a waste of time. What they do want to do is make sure that, the challenges that we face and the headwinds that we face are well understood by the group as a whole. I wrote a white paper, GRU to Crossroads, followed by GRU by the numbers, as well as a couple of other items that clearly delineate the fact that we aren't typical of the utilities that are out there going through this kind of exercise. We were burdened with, an incredibly above market contract that put us in a situation where we had to buy it out and incur a lot of debt that put us in the highest commercial and residential rates in the state of Florida. We don't have any more headroom that we can operate against. That's got to be considered in everything we do. If we don't have the money to do it, we've got to figure out a way, around that, if you will. So some of the things that we do actually fund, other operations, and we also have issues associated with the GFT. We have not been able to fund the general fund transfer. We're about $25 million short this year in funding the general fund transfer if you didn't look at the savings we got from the debt restructuring. That's not peanuts, folks.
Yeah.
And that's going to keep continuing. And in the meantime, we're talking about selling less of our power. We're going to have less consumption. We want to reduce it. And this is a here and now issue.
It is, but it's what's in front of us. Member Miles.
Yeah, I'm with you, Chair Porter, and I hear you, Ed, and I read staff notes, and all that is to me is these are the barriers we need to overcome to reach the goal that we have set before us. So we can sit all day, and Ed, you have some great valid points, and that's like that, not just with the UAB, with the GRU, but across the board in our city for housing, for energy, for everything. We lack the funds. However, we still have a job to do. And at the end of the day, we're going to have to get to renewable by 2045. And there are other companies like ours that have some of the same type of goals who are looking. So there's some case study out there for us to look at. I'm talking about the commission, not necessarily this board, but there are some ways that we can start to work at what that looks like going forward. And with this staff comments and their comments on the energy policy gives us a good roadmap to say these are the barriers that we need to overcome. So it's not a bad thing, and I really don't think, I think it's more tedious, Mr. Member Crow, than it is anything, but I don't think that they do it. From their end, they're not looking as broad. They're looking at the jobs and the day-to-day operations that they have to do in front of them, what the numbers look like today. And sometimes when you're in that job, that's all you can see is today. So you give it to somebody like us with all these different talents on the UAB, and we're saying, I think we can get there. It may take a little pinching, it may take a little this, it may take a little that, but I think there's enough talent on our UAB, in our city, in our county, to be able to get that done. So fret none, as they used to say, fret none, we'll get there, and you're not alone in the fight.
All right. Thank you, Member Miles. I was hoping you'd be here tonight to say exactly those words. I enjoy your clear thinking on this matter. I will have to add maybe a little leavening, a little light note, specifically geared towards Ed. I teach a course, online course, and gets the students involved with their own utility bills, and they have to calculate things. And I have a student, it's an online course, and I have a student in Orlando, which is not our utility district. And she talked about her utility bill and her consumption. Well, I worked the numbers out, and her cost per kilowatt hour averaged out for her residential bill of 14.41 cents per kilowatt hour. Mine in the same time period averaged out to 14.76, a difference of 35 hundredths of a penny. So we're not doing so bad. We're doing pretty good.
Well, no. Look at the commercial bill that we have. That's why we can't attract commercial customers.
I'm trying to give you a little happy news, Ed.
No.
Now give me a break. Give me a break.
I'm a realist, man. I got to run a utility.
Yeah.
And you know, we have calls from customers all the time.
You know, and I feel for that side of the coin until I walk into a store and I see rows and rows of T12 lights. I see people that the toilet rule came into change in 1992, and in 28 years they couldn't scrape enough money to change a toilet. So now they think it's going to break the bank if we have some change that requires them to be more energy and water efficient. I'm sorry, we've had warnings for years and years and years. If you're still running T12s, man, that's tough. It's tough to hear your complaints.
Oh, no. I'm agreeing with you on residential, but that's only 50% of our business.
I know, but I'm talking about,
side,
I know, I'm talking about the commercial complaints when I walk into their businesses and see them with T12s.
Yeah.
You know, come on. At least I respect our grocery stores. If I tell my students, you want to see an example of commercial energy efficiency, go into a grocery store. They were the first adopters of LEDs. They've got the case energy being dumped outside rather than inside. Lots of new stuff's going on. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. We're here in a workshop on our energy policy thing. Sorry about getting distracted. But as far as my reading of what we had in front of us, my general comments were exactly that, the issue of the tactics versus policy. And the issue of the transportation. We've chewed on both of those topics right here, and I don't see any consensus to change anything and present what we have to the city as is. And again, if they have further comments about what we should do about dividing out and changing into different lanes, then that we understand where they're coming from, and they're in charge of that. I don't know if anybody here is going to feel like they got their feelings hurt or anything. It's just their business versus our business. Is that a general statement there? Is that?
I agree.
All right. All right.
I agree as well.
Process to go through. It's going to get refined and tweaked. But
sure.
I don't see any point in spinning our wheels at the very beginning of the process.
Thank you, Member Rockwell. I agree. All right.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yeah, Member Wheeler, go ahead, please.
For clarification, we've had two versions of our most recent plan floating around in our most recent meetings, and emails are sent out. I appreciate Robin following up on that. It appears that the most recent version that she referred to is from October 22nd. And she referred to that as Chairman Sylvester's version. So
right.
We should start using version names, so to be clear.
Yeah.
So we want to move forward with the 1022. And while I'm making my comments, I'll continue to beat my drum, but I'd love to see some of my goals, schedules put back in, but that was from the previous version from 1015. So just for clarification, thank you.
Gotcha.
Is
Thank
that
you,
the
Member
one that's
Wheeler.
in Microsoft Word?
Yes.
The earlier ones were in PDF, and then the final one that I saw was in Microsoft Word, and that's the one you're referring to now. Okay.
Yes, it is. The Word one, the most recent one that Robin sent out was dated 10/22, and it's a Word document.
It's in Word, and the others are PDFs. Okay.
Yeah.
And Robin can speak up and correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you are correct. I believe I sent that one out today.
All right.
So, Mr. Chair, while I still have the floor here, I assume that at some point in the meeting, you all are going to talk about how you want to proceed with the joint meeting for next week, how you want to prepare for that. The reason I ask is because there's a very quick deadline for getting an agenda item in for that meeting. I have to have that in by Thursday. I don't expect that you all will be able, any backup that you want to add, I don't expect that you'll be able to turn it around that fast. But
No, we've chewed on this a long time, and I agree with the consensus of the board here that I think we should just turn this right back to the city and say that the general government comments and the utility comments are well understood. But as a policy, we will stick with what we got. Again, the city owns this document, so what they want to change after that, we're amenable to that. And are a part of that. But again, for a presentation to the city, we'll go with what we got.
Mr. Chair, do you need a motion to that effect?
We're a workshop. I don't think we can do that.
Okay.
That's the general consensus I got from everybody here. Again, the workshop is to prepare the meeting. And so the preparation is done. It's the article in front of us. Sorry for being so blunt, but I don't see any other way around that.
And so do you want to then, you don't want to have a presentation or anything, you're just going to have a discussion and I can just attach staff's comments and
yeah. I mean, at the very beginning, I can do certainly an introduction that condenses this summary down for them in a political fashion rather than some of the talk we've had here in a workshop. I might use some nicer words, but again, I just basically explain where we're coming from and put it on the floor.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Member Jacobson.
And I'm sure you're planning to do this, but I think, that the whole discussion of this is policy, not strategy is going to be, because we all want to go to strategy. That's for the
I'm an engineer. I want to leap right over this. I mean, Mary had to practically get a baseball bat and smack me over the head until I finally got it. It took the better part of the whole year we worked on this for me to get that, and I get it now. But again, I'm an engineer. I want to leap right to where's our solutions.
While we're talking, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yeah.
If staff could get back to us sometime later, obviously not in the near future, but sometime later about the IRP and how the board can get involved in that process. Since a lot of the staff's comments seem to circle back around to the IRP. So at some point in the future, when we have the time and the ability, I'd like to address that question.
Yes.
I'd like to second that idea. We've had several meetings in the last, say, 6 months or so, where we've talked about the need to really get down and dirty with the IRB, and we really haven't done it yet. And I'm sort of trying to support what you just said. I think that needs to be put up with neon lights, and we need to have that as our marching orders now.
Understood. Thank you. All right. Any other comments? How do we end up this? I guess we asked for citizen comment at the end, or what's our?
Chair, this is Jason again.
Oh, please go ahead, Member Fultz.
It wasn't really clear to me, since this is the first time I've participated in something like this, kind of what my responsibility was for participating in a document that I didn't shape whatsoever. But I did read through it, and I had a number of comments and questions about it. And so I don't know when and where and how is the proper way to share those and have that conversation, but I would like to get those, at least try to get some of those addressed before we go before the city commission as a kind of united front, basically.
Well, since the meeting is next week, let's see what Member Miles has to say about that.
So I can understand fully what Jason is saying, and that's one of those things of coming in at the tail end of work and then trying to add the voice to it. But this particular doc, and I want to hear what you have to say. I think right now the best thing for that is for you to send your comments to Robin, and for Robin to share those comments with us so we as a board know where you are. There's no way that we can change this document in the time before we go to the commission, so that's not going to happen. I think it would be a little bit, I mean, as we add members, Fletcher Crow, Mr. Crow can come with a different idea, and if we get a new member, they can come with a different idea, and then it comes down to, because I came in on the tail end of it when it was big, because it started before I came, and when I came, then I had to put the community PH in, so they had to move it back, and now we're ready to present it, it's just not the space for it. But we want, as a board, I know I do, I would love to hear what you have to add so that as the city commission goes, as general government goes to work on it, to adopt it, to change it, then we can be advocating for what some of those changes look like as individuals. But I think right now, as far as a board together goes, this is a wrap. We have that almost, I'm just saying, we're gonna present this, the thought is to present this to the City Commission next week at the joint meeting. So if we're not covering your questions now, even if we covered your questions now is not time to change the document. We have already decided by consensus that we were gonna submit it like it is and let them make any changes that they're gonna make. So I'm just interested, we can have the conversation, but as far as changing the document, it's kind of like ready to go, unless I'm misunderstanding. Now we can open up and start looking at your stuff and start looking at Mr. stuff and staff, and we can go back into a whole nother year of trying to change it to make sure we capture every single thing for every single person, and it's not going.
Yeah.
My recommendation that we kind of submit it, and then we can continue the discussion as a group if we like, so that we can know individually how to advocate past this.
Member Miles, as usual, right on target. I would have to say that everybody that's been involved with this document has always thought of it as going forward as a living document and not anything set in stone. There'll be multiple times to interject everybody's inputs into that. This is just another step forward. And definitely, Jason, especially with our history together working on some of these items, anything that you think is a serious issue, I'm probably also going to think is a serious issue. So we'll definitely want to hear that. And I think Carlos' suggestion to have it sent into Robin and sent out to the members is a good one. But this version is going to go to the city, and we're going to see what the city has to say about going forward on that. Member Crow.
Yeah, I hear what Carla is saying, and I hear what Jason is saying. Like Jason, I just came on board just a few months ago, so I didn't help shape this thing originally. But there is one thing that really sticks in my craw that I would like to address right now, despite what Carla said. I think there's one big flat tire in this document that we all need to be aware of. Right now, there's no attention to reporting progress on implementing any of these policy statements. And what we need to do is, in addition to what appears in that Microsoft Word document, we need to say that there needs to be a formal requirement, expectation of reporting periodically to the UAB the progress that's been made on each one of these policy areas. I mean, that could be annually or something. There needs to be somebody delegated with that specific task and by date certain to provide a full, complete, independent report of how we're doing on chipping away at these things.
Member Crow, I do believe that that's in the summary, where at the very end it says that what the next thing we do is produce a document that has measurable things that we go forward on. So that's in the tail end of that. recognizing again, the policy sets it, and then the follow on is what you're going to do to get there, and then you measure it. So we recognize that. By the time Mary and Michael ended up beating us over the heads about policy versus tactics, and it's in there, and that's our next task as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. Member Miles, did you have anything other than unmute yourself? Yeah, there you go.
I'm sorry. And just to kind of add that, Member Crow, I totally agree with you. And I think the place for that is after the city gets it, you know, for us to be because what I'm going to be asking the city for, like, I'm done with the document. I put my community piece in there, but I still need to follow up with the city to make sure that they get community engagement around this document once they get it, so that it's adopted by the community at large, so that they realize that it's an energy policy and they're following along. So I wouldn't put that inside this particular document, but I will advocate that for when the city is going forward, because I'm quite sure they're going to have some meetings on this as well. So we don't have to be finished with it where we just think it's perfect and they can just, you know, take it and whatever, and add no voice. I just don't think right now we're not going to change this document in it. It's not going to be changed today. And so that doesn't mean it can't be changed. We should still, I want to encourage you and Jason as well, because I'm like Wendell when it comes to Jason. He has a wealth of knowledge and I love to learn from him. And so I want to know, what did I miss? So
yeah.
Advocate after, you know, because we beat this across the head for about a year, but we have new talent with new ideas. And so we really want those, but we want to take it past this document. This one is done and being presented to the city.
This version.
Member
Blarski, or Ed.
yeah, that's okay. I would direct Member Crow to the budget that we prepare every year. As part of that, we have an executive summary that talks about the accomplishments we had throughout the year, which typically fall in line with the elements that you're talking about within the policy. I think this past year was actually phenomenal for GRU with getting the 50 megawatt PPA done, as well as, you know, going to the gasification of the Deerhaven 2 facility. So if we could get you a copy of that budget analysis, and we do that every year, and it's always been up to the UAB to have a discussion surrounding that budget and what we've accomplished. So we regularly do that, and I will tell you that this is not a function of us not knowing what to do. This is not a question of us not knowing how to execute. It's a matter of finding the way and the means to do it. And as Member Crow has sensed that there's certain things that he sees among GRU staff, there's certain things that I see among the UAB group that looking at GRU like, what are you guys doing? I mean, we're analyzing risk. We're trying to keep the utility, with its AA- rating. We're trying to keep the rates where they are. We're trying to minimize impact on customers. We're trying to reach the goal as judiciously as possible. We're doing all these things. I mean, we're fully equipped. We don't do just the day-to-day things. We're doing the 5-year, 10-year, 15-year planning. We do that. So yeah, I have to stick up for my folks.
And you do a nice job of that, Ed, and we appreciate that. Yeah. More than you can imagine. I'd rather be stuck dealing with a UAB that actually gets to talk to their utility than trying to be on the board of advisors for a Duke or an FPL and be faced with what they're facing. This is much more to my liking. So thank you for that, Ed. Okay, so see, the last thing on the list is the next meeting date. And then did we have any citizen comment out there? You're muted, Robin.
I do not see any I don't see any citizens in the list.
Okay. All right. And so you get to tell us our next meeting is the October 27th with the City Commission. Oh, Member Rockwell, did you have a comment first?
I actually just had I guess it's a comment or a question. I was hoping that maybe in a upcoming workshop, or it's probably best suited for a workshop, but as an agenda item, if we could get sort of a top level presentation on the GFT for some of us who don't know all the ins and outs of it, or understand it as well as some others. And I'm just talking about, like when and how it was established. Is it something that's negotiated year to year? What happens if GRU can't pay it, like legitimately, like does not have the money to pay whatever they're expected to pay that year? Just for informational purposes, but I also think it's a great starting point for a larger conversation that we're going to have to force people to have at some point.
Member Rockwell, I have to interrupt and say I think that's an excellent idea, because at first blush it's like, oh my God, I don't want to talk about that. But the other side of me says, you know what? Maybe a nice, fresh, from the beginning conversation about this would be beneficial to all, because there's historical precedents, there's other communities that do this, there's other metrics they do it by, there's this and that and the other, and I don't want to have this conversation for all night, but my last comment to that is, it doesn't matter. Whatever they say Bolarski pays, he pays. If he's got to get it out of his back pocket and out of his employees' salaries, that's what he ends up paying. And that's the way it is. And so, yeah, a better plan on that and a more cogent, coherent conversation from the beginning, I think would be an excellent idea.
I have to interject. I have to give Tim a big kiss on that one.
Yeah. Right. And you know exactly what I'm feeling about it. It's like, God, it's such a fraught subject, but you know what? From the beginning, a kind of an overview conversation about how did we get here? That's a pretty good idea, Member Rockwell. Yeah.
Careful, Tim. It's getting dangerous.
Yeah. Member Miles?
I was about to say, I agree, Tim, and trust me, we have the need for this in our community. Anytime somebody comes and complains about why GRU does X, Y, and Z to me, now that I have knowledge on both sides of the coin, I have to sit down and I have to start all over about GFT. And then also I learned from the public power convention that I was sent to, which was an awesome learning experience for me, that there are GFTs all over the world and they are all just as contentious as ours. So I felt a little relieved. I wasn't happy, but I felt relieved that we're not the only one, because I was like, this is a mess. And how do they expect the company? But there are some ways, like Wendell said, that they're able to stay afloat. And Ed has been very, very, very creative in making sure that we're able to meet that GFT, whether we make the money or not, because it is still a responsibility. It does not go away. They don't lower it. We kind of have to go in our reserves. We had a whole big long conversation about why we have no savings account anymore, so to speak, and all that thing rests under Ed, and he's been really creative about kind of keeping that. But yeah, that's a good subject to start back over, so I can get some more content for my community conversations.
And if I could say here, Mr. Porter, we are in the middle of getting a consultant that's going to look at that GFT calculation, because during the budget meeting with the city commission, they're not comfortable conversations with the city commission whenever we bring up the GFT.
No.
I don't like having them, but it's absolutely important to have them, because they need to know that we don't have funds that we've earned from operations to pay for that, and we will be doing that for a while. And what was so important also was that we refinanced some debt back in 2019 that would get us closer to being able to pay that GFT, but it came with 6 years from now, our debt service payments going up. So we ought to be saving some of that money and reducing some of our debt service. And of course, now going into COVID and all these other things, with no rate increases, we're not doing that. So, that problem is going to be exacerbated. So I think it's an appropriate time to talk about that with the UAB, because that's really one of the pivotal items that determines what rates are going to be. And, in a lot of cases, it's outside our control. So we will be bringing back that information. The city commission, I talked to the city manager, and rather than me sit there and say, well, we don't have the money, we can't pay it, and he's saying, well, what service do you want me to cut? We thought we'd bring in, you know, an objective third party that's a consultant that would sit there and say, okay, well, this is the way we need to look at it, or this is the way other people are looking at it, or whatever. But quite frankly, I mean, I'm almost a proponent of putting it on the bill as a separate item and saying, here's the rate you're paying for the GFT. Yeah. Because I'm tired of our rates being commingled with a $38.4 million number that we pay to general government every year. And people say, why are your rates so high? And you know exactly what I'm talking about, Ms. Miles, because people in the community don't understand that they're paying for general government through our services.
And that's where I'm coming from. Is I just want to understand the mechanics of it, so I can make sure that some of the opinions I've formed are accurate. And I just think it would be educational for everybody, and hopefully a launching point for the conversation.
Thank you. Yeah, Member Crow.
Ed talked about a consultant being available. You know, we have the utility study group down there at University of Florida. A professor like that might be able to give a 15-minute overview of, you know, how it's been done historically or in other jurisdictions or something too.
We have all that information. I told the city commission I could do it for half the price, and of course they laughed.
Let me just say, I can understand the importance of putting an outside party eyes on it, because if you're general government, you have something already up here that can sway your information. If you're Ed, you need to sway that information in the best interest of your company. If you're the city, you need to sway that information in the best interest of the GFT. If you're university, you just gonna put out some information based on research. If I'm an outside consulting firm, I may be able to lend you a little bit more unbiased and some direction with some directives as to what we feel like. A presentation at this point, we already understand. A lot of understand what it is, and that is other ways to fix it. We need a consultant to say, hey, here's what's tried in cities your size with the problems that you have. And here's where you should direct this, not just for GRU, but also for general government to say, listen, this is how you take some of the pressure off of your utility. This is what you need to change, because I don't think all the changes should be on GRU side. General government need to meet us halfway. And we need to look at doing this holistically. I think a third set of eyes outside of our city would be a good way to get that done.
Well, at this point, I think.
You know,
well, go ahead, Ed.
I'm sorry. Just one more thing I'd say to, since Member Crow is trying to get a feel for what some of this background is. I mean, this really kind of came to a head back in 2019 when we went to the budget with the city commission, and I said, listen, you know, for the next 5 years, we're going to experience between a $6 and $12 million shortfall every year in our ability to pay the general fund transfer. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. That's the way it is. There's ways in which we can mitigate that. But one of the things that I think we ought to do is share that pain with general government. And, you know, they ought to reduce the general fund transfer by $6 million, and we'll make up on the other side of it. The result of that was general government didn't take any reduction in general fund transfer. GRU financed refinanced some of its debt, took reductions in operating expenses, froze staff, did a whole host of things while still maintaining the same level of service. So I really appreciate what Member Miles is saying there. You know, if we are truly one city, we got to start acting like one city. You know, it's not just the utility funding all, because if you don't have a healthy utility financially, economically, you're not going to have a healthy general government function. They're not going to be able to do the things they need to do for the people that need it the most. Let's face it. And that's what they should be doing. Yeah. But I'll get off the soapbox.
Yeah, I think safely to say that we could talk about this a while. We have 2 workshops worth of work already lined up. One's the IRP and one's the general fund transfer. So when we set workshop dates, we already have agenda items. So, and I don't think we should put both of those on the same workshop. Definitely not. We're at the end of this meeting. There's no citizens comment. The next meeting date, Robin, what do we got for us? That's our city commission, right?
Yes, October 27th is the joint meeting with the commission, and then your next regular meeting will be November 12th.
All right. Okay, that sounds good.
The Zoom meeting?
Yeah, they're going to be Zoom meetings.
Well, the one with the
No.
commission on the next week will be, we will have to wait until the end of the month to see what the governor says about whether we can continue Zoom meetings in November. So
Okay, but
have to go back in person again.
the commission meeting next week is going to be in Zoom, right?
Yes, and I believe I already sent that to your calendars. I'll double check and make sure
Yeah.
that I did.
I get so many of those things I just have to wake up in the morning and take a look and see what's on for the
Yeah,
day. I'm sure you're all in the same boat. So, okay, I think that's it for our workshop. We got any other comments before we go? I think we're about commented out.
Thank you, Wendell, for a good meeting.
Thank you all. It's pretty good when you have a good crowd. Thanks for all your input. We at the UAB certainly appreciate the other side of the fence and GRU's work, and hopefully we can be some additive to the city too. So we'll see you all in a week.